The history of the destruction of Baal and the dragon, cut off from the end of the book of Daniel. And the king Astyages was gathered to his fathers. And Cyrus of Persia received his kingdom, and Daniel conversed with the king and was honored above all his friends. Now the Babylonians had an idol called Baal, and there were spent upon him every day 12 great measures of fine flour, 40 sheep, and 6 vessels of wine. And the king worshipped it, and went daily to adore it. But Daniel worshipped his own God. And the king said unto him, Why dost thou not worship Baal? Who answered and said, Because I may not worship idols made with hands, but the living Elohim, who has created the heaven and the earth, and has authority over all flesh. Then said the king unto him, Do you not think that Baal is a living God? Do you see how much he eats and drinks every day? Then Daniel smiled and said, O king, be not deceived, for this is but clay within and brass without. It did never eat or drink anything. So the king was wroth, and called for his priest, and said unto them, If you tell me not who this is that devours these expenses, ye shall die. But if you can clarify me that Baal devoureth them, then Daniel shall die. For he has spoken blasphemy against Baal. And Daniel said unto the king, Let it be according to thy word. Now the priests of Baal were 70, beside their wives and children. And the king went with Daniel into the temple of Baal. So Baal's priests said, Lo, we go out. But thou, O king, set on the meat, and make ready thy wine, and shut the door fast, and seal it with thy own mark. And tomorrow, when you come in, if you find that he has not eaten up all, we will suffer death. Or else Daniel, that speaketh falsely against us. And they little regarded it, for under the table they had made a secret entrance, whereby they entered in constantly and consumed these things. So when they were gone forth, the king set meats before Baal. Now Daniel had commanded his servants to bring ashes, and they scattered throughout all the temple in the presence of the king alone. Then went they out and shut the door and sealed it with the king's mark, and so departed. Now in the night came the priests with their wives and children, as they were wont to do, and did eat and drink of all. In the morning betime the king arose, and Daniel with him. And the king said to Daniel, Are the seals whole? And he said, Yes, O king, they be whole. And as soon as he had opened the door, the king looked upon the table, and cried with a loud voice, Great art thou, O Baal, and with thee is no deceit at all. Then laughed Daniel, and held the king that he should not go in, and said, Behold now the pavement, and mark well whose footsteps are these. And the king said, I see the footsteps of men, women, and children. And then the king was angry, and took the priests with their wives and children, who showed him the secret door where they came in, and consumed such things as were upon the table. Therefore the king slew them and delivered Baal into Daniel's power, who destroyed him in his temple. And in that same place there was a great dragon, which they of Babylon worshipped. And the king said unto Daniel, Will you also say that this is of brass? Lo, he liveth, he eateth, and he drinketh. Thou cannot say that he is not a living God, therefore worship him. Then said Daniel unto the king, I will worship Jehovah Elohim, for he is the living God. But give me leave, O king, and I shall slay this dragon without sword or staff. The king said, I give thee leave. Then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair, and he did seam them together, and made lumps thereof. This he put in the dragon's mouth, and so the dragon burst open. And Daniel said, Lo, these are the gods you worship. When they of Babylon heard that, they took great anger and conspired against the king, saying, The king has become a Jew, and he has destroyed Baal, and he has slain the dragon, and put the priests to death. So they came to the king and said, Deliver us Daniel, or else we will destroy you and your house. Now when the king saw that they pressed him sore, being constrained, he delivered Daniel unto them, who cast him into the lion's den, where he was 6 days. And in the den there were 7 lions, and they had given them every day 2 carcasses and 2 sheep, which then were not given to them, to the intent that they might devour Daniel. Now there was a Jewish prophet called Habakkuk, who had made pottage, and had broken bread in a bowl, and was going into the field for to bring it to the reapers. But the messenger of Jehovah said unto Habakkuk, Go, carry the dinner that thou hast into Babylon unto Daniel, who is in the lion's den. And Habakkuk said, Master, I never saw Babylon, neither do I know where the den is. Then the messenger of Jehovah took him by the crown, and bore him by the hair of his head, and through force of his spirit set him in Babylon over the den. And Habakkuk cried, saying, O Daniel, Daniel, take the dinner which Elohim has sent thee. And Daniel said, Thou hast remembered me, O Elohim, neither hast thou forsaken them that look for you and love you. So Daniel rose and did eat, and the messenger of Jehovah sent Habakkuk in his own place again immediately. Upon the 7th day the king went to bewail Daniel. And when he came to the den, he looked in, and behold, Daniel was sitting. Then cried the king with a loud voice, saying, Great are you, Jehovah Elohim of Daniel, and there is none other besides you. And he drew him out, and cast those that were the cause of his destruction into the den, and they were devoured in a moment before his face.